Is weird, odd, strange, or just plain bizarre is really your cup of tea? Then, the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast will give you that fix. Can't believe it? Well, listen for yourself as we deliver the strangest news you definitely won't find on CNN or Fox. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Weird News Podcast.
Thank you for tuning into the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Caleb Holloman. You may have noticed that I'm speaking with a bit more sriracha in my voice today. That's because I got a little criticism saying I'm talking too slow, a little too monotone. I won't tell you what else the person said because it was kind of hurtful. But, anyways, today we're here to talk about, what are we here to talk about? We're here to talk about a cult that attempted to murder an attorney with a deadly rattlesnake attack. Oh, I just love cult stories. Alright, and then we're going to move on, talk a little bit about video game addictions in China leading to paralysis, amongst other things. We'll get into a lady who got blind while playing video games and a few people whose bladders exploded while in an internet cafe. So we're gonna tackle this video game issue, and I think we're gonna put the final nail in the coffin. You know, get rid of video games. We don't need happiness anymore. And the third section, we're gonna move on and talk about some health fraud scams as reported by the FDA. This week, somebody tried to sell bleach as a cure for the coronavirus. So we're gonna go over that and explain to the folks at home why drinking bleach is a bad thing. And finally, kind of going off that same topic, we're going to end with my top 10 confidence man schemes. Confidence man, that's the same as a con man, so we're going to do some schemes for you later on. Stay tuned for that. We'll try to keep it modern, but a few of them are going to end up in prehistoric times because they're just fantastic. Alright, but first we're going to talk about this cult that attempted to murder Paul Morantz, an attorney, with a rattlesnake. Which rattlesnakes, for those who don't know, are it's my bar fight weapon of choice. You know, we don't need guns in this country. Yeah, just everybody carry a rattlesnake with them. All right. So the reason this cult had a grudge at this attorney Paul Morantz is because he won a lawsuit against them. So first, let's get into this cult. This cult's name is Synanon, and according to www.en.wikipedia.org, Synanon is an organization that became a violent cult. Initially, was a drug rehabilitation program. It began in 1958 on Santa Monica Beach, California. It began on the actual beach, and has since become an alternative community, attracting people with its emphasis on living a self-examined life. So it's much like the 12-step program, just with more poisonous reptiles. And eventually, the Synanon alternative community became the Church of Synanon. I'm going to stop saying Synanon, so I'm just going to start calling it the church from now on, or the cult. I'll probably call it the cult to avoid controversy. And it reportedly disbanded in 1991 due to many criminal activities, including attempted murder, which we'll expand on later, and also not paying its taxes, which is how a lot of these organizations get caught. But for attention span sakes, we're going to focus on the murder in this story, okay, folks? So first, let me clarify. This is not a new story. This occurred all the way back in 1978, but it's just now finally getting popularization as a result of it getting mentioned on a cult TV show. So that's why it's coming to us now. Sorry for the delay. All right. So basically, the attorney won a case, and the case was this: a husband and wife were walking on a beach, and all of a sudden, the wife disappeared, and apparently, the cult talked her into getting on a bus and driving to North California in order to attend one of their sermons. The husband and wife eventually sued the cult for $300,000 under the guise of imprisonment, under the accusation of imprisonment, rather. And the attorney Marantz won the case. But it's noted in this article that the victory was short-lived, as he became the organization's next target. So 3 weeks after the case, in October of 1978, Marantz was bitten by a 4-foot-long rattlesnake that was stuffed inside of his mailbox. Which doesn't seem like the most efficient way to take out one of your enemies. It should be noted that they took a lot of care to make sure this went down properly. They actually cut the rattle off the rattlesnake before putting it in the mailbox so as not to alert Marantz of the snake itself. And apparently, attorney Marantz knew right away that it was signing on. When the first responders showed up, Marantz said, quote, "Cyanon! Cyanon! Cyanon!" He shouted it repeatedly. They said he shouted it over 30 times, just so people would get the picture. And thank God Marantz was rushed to a local hospital, where he was placed under intensive specialized care, and of course he survived the attack. Most people bitten by rattlesnakes in California do survive attacks. And apparently this cult also did their homework. Prior to the rattlesnake attack, neighbors, quote, saw a white van parked outside Marantz's house, and they wrote down the license plate number, which came back as a registered Church of Synanon. Now, the car was later seen driving near the Pacific Palisades, and police noticed the plate number, pulled it over, and recognized the two people as members of Synanon, the cult, and held them in suspicion of the rattlesnake attack. Now, what was the punishment for the leader of this cult, who organized this attack? He got a $5,000 fine. That was part of his pleading guilty deal. And the big win for the state of California was that he was banned from associating with Synanon ever again, and consequently the cult was dissolved. Oh, I love cult stories. One day we'll do my top 10 cults. That'll probably be next week, because that will be a heck of a time. And unfortunately, attorney Marantz still suffers from lifelong illness as a result of the rattlesnake venom, which requires him to receive blood transfusions every other week. That is just brutal. Poor guy. But at least he has his $5,000. Now, this wasn't a one-time thing. In fact, the leader of the cult was he was no stranger to violence. He was once quoted as saying, quote, "We're not going to mess with the old-time turn-the-other-cheek religious postures. Our religious posture is, don't mess with us. You can get killed dead, literally dead. These are real threats. They are draining life's blood from us and expecting us to pay their silly rules. We'll make them rules." That's what he said. We'll make them rules. I see nothing frightening about it. I am quite willing to break some lawyer's legs and break his wife's legs and threaten to cut their child's arms off. That is the end of that lawyer. That is the very satisfactory, humane way of transmitting information. I really do want an ear and a glass of alcohol on my desk. What the hell does that mean? I really do want an ear and a glass of alcohol on my desk. Maybe there's something I don't understand about alcohol in that last statement. But apparently it was worth including in his world-famous threat quote. Now, they eventually did suffer more punishments. The leader of this cult landed himself in jail for 5 years as a result of tax fraud, and he eventually had to pay back $17 million. So he attempts to murder somebody, and they give us $5,000 and we'll let you go. But don't screw with the IRS, man. He didn't even commit fraud. They just revoked his tax exempt status and then ordered him to pay the $17 million back in taxes. So that's how they got him in the end. The cult was also said to have committed over 80 violent acts, including mass beatings that hospitalized teenagers and ranchers who were beaten in front of their families. People who left the organization were, of course, at risk of physical violence after being a, quote, splittee. That's what the leader of the cult would call them. One ex-member, Phil Ritter, was beaten so severely that his skull was fractured, and he subsequently fell into a coma with a near-fatal cause of bacterial meningitis. So these cultists were not screwing around about their religion. A few more famous surveys of the Synanon Project says that NBC network and corporate chairman allegedly received hundreds of threats from the cult as a result of just mentioning their name on his news station. But as all cults are, I suppose, they had their they had their good parts. You know, it wasn't all rattlesnakes and mailboxes. They also promoted a culture of recovery through therapeutical means to replace the culture of street junkies. Isn't that sweet? And many of the members, once the cult was disbanded, went on to found or play key roles in establishing numerous drug treatment centers and therapeutic communities in their own, including Tuam Est Venice, which is that's a therapy place in San Francisco, which is actually highly acclaimed. I used to live in San Francisco, and I've actually driven past that place every day of my life while going to work. So it's still around, and so apparently the spirit of Synanon lives on through drug rehabilitation. And that's not the only relation to this story I have. One time I was hiking in Colorado at night, and I almost stepped on a rattlesnake, me and my brother. We were with two ladies, and the ladies thought we were about to tase them because they heard the rattle, so they thought we had tasers. When it was just a rattlesnake, and we didn't disturb it, and it didn't disturb us. And then my other big brother came along and threw a big rock at it, and so now we have a little mantle with a rattle on it. And I think we should go back and look at the effect that cults have on society, but not just society. I think it's more important to look back on the effects they have on individuals. So, post-Morantz's detoxification, he went out and immediately bought a shotgun. He is said to have, quote, constantly be looking over his shoulder. He would check his car for bombs before getting in. That is so sad. That is a hard life to, look under your car and be like, oh, there's a little bit of dynamite under there today. Just like 3 sticks tied in a knot with a little thing with a spark on it. And it was said that he didn't really recover he didn't recover mentally until a year later, when he said he sat down for a Dodgers versus Yankees game and, quote, for one moment I'm not going to think about Synanon. I'm just going to watch the damn baseball game, which is the kind of quote I hear a lot. Oh, that's great. I don't have to think about Synanon, which you're thinking of Synanon while you think you're not thinking of Synanon. I've always found those kinds of quotes entertaining. But yeah, now he has a 4-foot-long rattlesnake on his mantle, which I think is an interesting way to handle the situation, is to have your worst enemy's weapons sitting on your countertop. I think that's how the ancient Romans actually dealt with things. They would steal the weapons of their enemies and keep them on their mantles, which is a pretty cool way to handle it. That's the ultimate way of saying, hey, I won. Woe to the vanquished. Alright, that's gotta be it for this segment. Stay tuned for after the break, where we'll talk about video game addictions causing paralysis and blindness in China and a few other countries, including the U.S. Let's face facts, folks. Alright, stay tuned for that.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. We just talked about a cult attacking their rival attorney with a rattlesnake. Now we're going to talk about video game addictions causing paralysis. Stay tuned to my final segment, where I'm going to give you top 10 con man schemes, top 10 schemes, dirty, filthy schemes, some easy ways to get some money, folks. Listen in. Hard times call for desperate measures. I believe that's the saying. That'll be a fun one. Alright, now we're going to talk about a 15-year-old boy in China who became paralyzed in his left arm and left hand after playing video games for 22 hours a day, every day, for an entire month. The boy's name is Xiaobin, and he lives in the city of Nanning City, China. He's a year 9 student, and he blames coronavirus for making him play video games 22 hours a day. This, as I said previous, led to his left arm and hand being paralyzed. The boy's mother told the Chinese press that, quote, "The boy would shut his windows and lock his doors, and us parents would have no idea what he was doing in there." She goes on to say that he coerced them into letting him take online classes so he could spend more time locked in his room. And during this period, the boy repeatedly slept only for 2 hours a day for the whole month, which was discovered by his mother after searching his online conversation with friends, each of which lasted over 22 hours per day. Now, playing video games alone can't really cause your arm to go paralyzed, and eventually medics diagnosed him with a CT scan that he suffered a cerebral stroke and lost sensation in his left arm and hand as a result. The brain specialist at the hospital went on to blame the boy's irregular sleeping and eating patterns, and he went on to scold the boy's parents for tolerating Xiaobin's behavior. And said that the cerebral stroke was caused by a lack of nutrition, which led to a reduced amount of blood and oxygen. Which, for those who aren't doctors, lack of blood and oxygen is a bad thing. The young gamer has since been receiving rehabilitation treatment at the Nanning Hospital. And the chief therapist at the facility said that it was difficult to determine whether Xiaobin could ever fully recover. So these might be the last days of Xiaobin's legendary gaming career. Now, I know I don't work in a graveyard, but I found myself digging a bit deeper into this story. And it turns out that China has been barring gamers under 18 from playing video games after 10 p.m., in a movement to curb growing video game addiction. So China actually has a law saying that anyone under 18 can't play video games after 10 p.m. Not only this, but children are also restricted to only 90 minutes of video gaming per day during the weekdays. And on weekends, that cap is raised to a generous 180 minutes, or 3 hours. 3 hours. I've gamed more than 3 hours per day every day, and since coronavirus started, I'd say. I don't mean to brag or anything, but children ages of 8 to 16 in China are also limited to a maximum 200 yuan spent per month on in-game purchases, which is $29 a month, and those of ages 16 to 18 can spend double that amount. In order to enforce these rules, China forces children to register for online gaming accounts using their real names, valid identification cards, as well as a parental signed form of consent. Just so the children can sign up for 90 minutes of gaming per day. Oh my gosh. Now don't get me wrong, I think people play video games too much, I know I do, but I think something more important than limiting the use of video games is free will. I'm not saying that's the binary, but I think it's important that people are able to choose, hey, I'll spend 5 hours on video games today, and maybe not play them the rest of the week, you know? Reallocate your time to something a little more useful. How about that? And it should be noted that the Chinese Communist Party plans to expand these video game censorship drawbacks, saying, quote, Chinese-based gamers will no longer be able to send messages or invites to any foreign countries. It was also noted that the government will strictly monitor even one-player online games. Other apps featuring zombies, plagues, map editing, or role-playing, or any gaming apps that allow players to form groups, are no longer allowed in China. Now, since coronavirus started, many people don't know this, video game systems have been selling out worldwide. The most notable is the Nintendo Switch. They had a big hit come out called Animal Crossing New Horizons, and I'm not just advertising for them. I'm also bringing to light the fact that China has banned this game across its entire country after a 23-year-old activist named Joshua Wong used New Horizons to protest against the Chinese government. So people in China are getting a little desperate to protest. Some of them resorting to Nintendo games. And in this game, you get to build your little island, and he decorated, Joshua Wong, the protester, decorated his island with a message saying, Free Hong Kong, revolution now! And consequently, the game got banned. Now, it should be noted that Zayubin is not the first person in China to get paralyzed from gaming. Back in 2018, a gamer lost sensation from his waist down after playing video games nonstop for 20 hours in an internet cafe in Zhangzhang province on Sunday. And there's my properly mispronounced name of the week for you folks. A friend of the paralyzed man said, It seems he had lost sensation completely and couldn't move at all. We had to call for an ambulance. I shouldn't be laughing, but it's how I deal with tragedy, okay, folks? This is tragic. Let's face facts. So the man realized he was paralyzed when he attempted to go to the toilet. But then he found that he couldn't move the lower half of his body. He reportedly entered the internet cafe on Saturday evening and had been playing the same game without any breaks 20 hours straight until he was taken to the hospital Sunday afternoon. Yeah, I've had nights like that, but I've never been paralyzed afterwards. But I have gamed for 20 hours straight. And the really inspirational part of this story is when the man is being carried out of the internet cafe, he is heard shouting by spectators, begging his friends to continue playing his unfinished game. In 2008, China became the first country to officially declare internet addiction, and they gave it the nickname digital heroin. And they ended up dubbing it a clinical disorder. Since then, they have attempted a lot of methods to fix this problem, including video game boot camps that reportedly bear similar conditions to those of a prison. Basically, they just lock you away from the internet, I guess, much like fat camps where they lock you away from food. Perhaps a little less egregious. The Chinese Communist Party also linked video games to, quote, poison, saying that people were stealing money, experiencing strokes, and jumping out of high-rise windows as a result of too much video gaming. Oh my gosh. And similar reports occurred even earlier than this incident. In 2007, a person died of a heart attack after playing an internet game during the entire Spring Festival in China. In the same year, it was reported that a 30-year-old man in Guangzhou died after playing video games continuously for 3 days, non-stop. I've never achieved that goal, but I'm sure I will one day. Similarly, a 21-year-old woman lost sight in her right eye after overexposed to a mobile video game. I'm reading that for the first time, and it's sad. It is sad, but just a heads up to people. That's when you've been playing too much, is when you start to lose your vision. When staring at a phone screen equalizes staring at the sun. Alright, in 2015, a 32-year-old man died after playing computer video games for 3 days straight in Taiwanese internet bar. And when asked the problems China is facing with video games, Chinese Communist Party, the CCP, as I'll call them from now on, said, quote, modern video games are enormous and dense. Video games can generate strong emotions in players. Top players or teams can receive rewards in real life, as some tournaments offer cash prizes. The virtual gaming world continues to evolve even when players are not online. The game's world may continue to develop. This creates an incentive to keep playing the game due to the fear of falling behind. Video games often have digital currencies that are linked to real-life currencies, making the distinction between the two difficult for children to understand, resulting in them spending real money in exchange for fake money. Moreover, the Chinese government has a big problem with multiplayer games, as they do not end. It encourages players to connect and collaborate with gamers around the world. And finally, video games satisfy the need of social connections and activities. So their main problems with video games are that they provoke emotions, and you get rewards in real life, and it promotes social connections and activities, which, if you ask me, sounds great. Wouldn't you want all three of those things to happen to your child? You want them to experience emotions. You want them to get things in real life after working hard. And you want social connections. That's important. These children need socialization. But it would be nice if people could be social without staring at a screen and going blind and then going paralyzed. I mean, at least then you can't see that you're paralyzed. That's useful. Now, I went ahead and did even more digging, and it turns out that if you type into Google how much gaming is too much, Google will let you know that it's 5 hours a day is excessive. Thanks, Google. Now, of course I've just been picking on the Chinese for about 10 or 15 minutes, but this happens in every country. They're just really the only country that's enforcing legislation to crack down on this. Not saying that it helps, not saying that video game rights are important or not. That's for you, the folks at home, to decide. But it's true. Every year people die while playing video games. I remember hearing a story where a guy wouldn't get up to use the bathroom and his bladder exploded. And you know, in the United States, there's been like shootings as a result of video games. But I think that has more to do with the individual than the video games itself. There was that one teenager who shot his parents after they took away his copy of Halo 3, which is not okay to laugh at, folks. No laughing at that. It's not funny that it happened, but it's kind of funny how it happened. I'm gonna get fired. Okay, so in that case, the judge of the teen said, quote, "I firmly believe that blank blank had no idea at the time he hatched this plot that if he killed his parents, they would be dead forever. So, maybe that's part of the problem in video games, is that when you die, you don't die forever, so it teaches you that you can just kill without consequence. I don't know, I think that might be a stretch. Wow, this one ended a bit dark. Okay. Stay tuned for after the break, when we'll go over men in Florida who are selling bleach as a cure for coronavirus.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America's Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America's Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Alright, welcome back from the break. We just talked about some video game addictions leading to death and other tragedies, paralyzation, blindness, etc. Now we're going to move on to something a little more, let's just get to it. It's our Florida topic of the week, as I like to call it. Florida men, plural, accused of selling bleach as miracle cure for COVID-19. The entire marketing scheme was, quote, miracle mineral solution. So this comes from federal officials who announced last Wednesday that they have charged 4 men by selling the bleach as a cure for COVID-19. The solution was sold nationwide through an entity called Genesis 2 Church of Health and Healing, and this was eventually reported. And a Miami federal judge in April ordered the self-styled church to stop selling the substance. But he was ignored. I like how they just assumed that the people selling bleach as a miracle cure would listen if a judge said, Hey, you kids over there, stop it. No, stop. You better not. Sorry. And these weren't just 4 random people. It was Mark Greenon, Jonathan Greenon, Jordan Greenon, and Joseph Greenon. It was a dad and his 3 sons, and they were charged with a conspiracy to defraud the United States by violating the Federal Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Art and Criminal Contempt. And now they are awaiting federal court without any attorneys, so it's probably not going to go so well for them. And they face a maximum of between 14 and 17 years in prison if convicted of all charges. According to the FDA, the solution sold by the Greenon family was a bleach that is typically used in industrial water, pulp, and paper factories for treating textiles. The FDA went on to say, quote, ingesting these products is the same as drinking bleach. Consumers should not use these products, and parents should not give these products to their children for any reason. Thanks, FDA. More great work from the FDA. Oh, but the Greenons have marketed the use of this bleach not only for coronavirus, but also for cancer, autism, multiple sclerosis, Alzheimer's disease, and AIDS. This is all according to the same complaint that landed the family in prison. So it's good to see the Greenons are taking advantage of this whole coronavirus boom. The FDA went on to say that not only is MMS product toxic, but its distribution and use may prevent those who are sick from receiving the legitimate health care they need. So this is one of the many arguments that the FDA uses against things such as herbal medicine. It's like, hey, herbs may help temporarily or they may help a little bit, but guess what? They're going to distract you from the cure you really need that really is out there. The only problem in this estimation is that there is no cure for coronavirus yet. They went on to say, we will not sit idly by as individuals purposefully violate court orders and put the public in danger. And Greenon responded, the Greenon family responded, we will not be participating in any of your unconstitutional orders, summons, etc. Again and again, I have written you all that you have no authority over our church. So they're making this a religious argument. They have a religious argument saying that they are validated by their church to sell bleach as a cure for cancer. Okay. Now, it should be noted that the co-founder of this operation, Mark Greenon, said, quote, that this is a non-religious church and that we founded Genesis to, quote, legalize the use of MMS and avoid going to jail. So he has actually admitted to the fact that this is a screwy operation, and the only reason they have this church argument is to avoid going to prison. And I don't think it's going to work, especially if you admit it. So I did a little more digging. I went to fda.gov/health frauds, and it turns out that these health frauds have been going on for a while, folks. You might have been scammed in the past. Let's go through a little fun list and see what people have been buying and selling illegally as cures. Alright, this first one is about the cannabis oil, or CBD, which has become very popular in the past couple months. I know a lot of my family uses it. It's kind of the non-fun part of weed. The fun part of weed is THC. Not that I would know. The non-fun part is CBD, which is said to have all sorts of natural health benefits, whatever. The point is, some people have been using it as, quote, a cure for opioid addiction. The FDA said, quote, the opioid crisis continues to be a serious problem in the United States, and we will be continuing to crack down on companies that attempt to benefit from selling products with unfounded treatment claims. Of course, CBD oil has not been found to treat opioid addiction. That's kind of like saying coconut oil will treat your opioid addiction. The FDA went on to say that opioid addiction is a real problem in our country, and those who are addicted need to seek out proper treatment from a health care provider. There are many unanswered questions about the science, safety, effectiveness, and quality of unapproved products containing CBD, and they will continue to work to protect the health and safety of American consumers from products that are being marketed in violation of the law. So one of the main ways people are distributing CBD as a cure for opioids is by making them injectable. So people are handing out needles with CBD oil in them, selling them, not handing them out. And they're advertised as an alternative to opioids. So it's like, oh, I can either take heroin or some smelly weed product. And the FDA says that they have not tested these products and cannot confirm whether or not they help with the opioid crisis. So that part's actually the FDA's fault. They better get on that, because it would be neat if you could cure opioids with weed. Alright, let's move to our next FDA health fraud announcement. The FDA and the DEA warn website operators illegally selling opioids. So they called up the owner of the guy illegally selling opioids and said, hey, cut it out. Knock it off. You're not supposed to do that. Those kill people. So this is your warning. 3 strikes and we're going to send your butt to prison, buddy. So they sent letters, you know, those little paper things people used to put stamps on and throw places. They sent them to 4 online networks operating a total of 10 websites illegally marketing unapproved and misbranded versions of opioid medicines, including tramadol, which for those who don't know is potentially very dangerous, just like the rest of opioids. And the warning letter was reportedly very harsh. It said they must immediately stop selling illegal opioids to the American consumers. I'm glad they're being very firm on their scoldings to people selling opioids illegally. And in the FDA's defense, they said, quote, "Issuing these warning letters is not only an effort to deter the availability of dangerous legal opioids, but it is also a treatment to the close operation between DEA and FDA. We will continue to attack organizations that facilitate the sale of dangerous drugs, putting profit over public safety." So, they, hopefully the harsh letters will put a stop to the opioid crisis. I like their optimism, though, I'm not gonna lie. And those 10 websites they sent letters to, that was last year alone. 2 years before that, they sent letters to 53 websites marketing unapproved opioids. So I guess it's working, right? They cut it down from 1 year to from 53 websites to 10 websites. So I guess these letters are really provoking, really bringing out the best of these drug dealers. All right, and our next little FDA warning. I just like the headline of this one. FDA warns companies for promoting alternatives to street drugs. To me, it sounds like a good thing to promote alternatives to street drugs, you know? Hey, why are you doing that pot over there, kid? Why don't you come over here and play hacky sack? It's way funner. So, the ones they're cracking down upon are, it's called Coco Local, which is a snortable chocolate powder. It is being advertised as an alternative to drugs, but the FDA is saying that it's a unapproved new drug or a misbranded drug. And the FDA says that they are worried that Coco Loco can encourage drug abuse in individuals, including minors. Street drug alternatives are products that claim to mimic the effect of recreational drugs and are intended to be used for recreational purposes to affect psychological states. They said, quote, "As a physician and a parent, I'm deeply troubled by the unlawful marketing of these potentially dangerous products, especially since they are so easily accessible by minors. Encouraging the use of snortable chocolate as an alternative to illegal drugs is not acceptable. There are very real consequences to snorting any powder, not to mention the societal dangers of promoting drug abuse. At a time where drug addiction is threatening the fabric of American society, we must take action. When we see efforts that may further fuel illicit drug abuse, we'll continue to vigorously target bad actors that sell unapproved products, including products that contain undeclared drug ingredients." Coco Loco is described as a snuff by the FDA and is that's kind of sad. It's said to trigger spasms of the vocal cords, making it difficult to speak and breathe. So, they should probably be targeting that, not the fact that chocolate is a gateway to cocaine. So, once again, we've learned a lot from Florida this week. Mainly, don't snort chocolate, kids. It's not cool. I don't care what your cool uncle tells you. Snorting chocolate is not cool. Alright, that's it for this section about FDA drug warnings. So, don't watch out if people are advertising a cure to coronavirus, make sure it doesn't say, works twice as good as our competitor detergent. Make sure it's FDA approved, because they're looking out for you from snorting chocolate all the way to bleach. Alright. Stay tuned, we'll talk about some confidence man schemes, some easy ways to get some quick cash for you during this crisis. No, it's really interesting actually to go through the historical ways people have scammed their way to the top. So we'll go through that later. Stay tuned.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back to the GSMC Weird News Podcast. We talked for a few minutes earlier about some health fraud scams, a family selling bleach as a cure for coronavirus, amongst other things. And now we are finally going to get to top 10 confidence man schemes. Confidence man, that's the same as a con man. Alright, let's jump in with number 10, which is, it's a bit of a history lesson for you, which is my favorite subject to talk about, history. And, number 10, that is snake oil. Alright, so, so stupid. Okay, so, in the 18th century Europe, people actually used, quote, viper oil, which, is actually just rattlesnake oil. You know, they said viper because it sounds cooler. They would sell it to American cowboys as a treat for skin diseases. And the FDA, I looked this up on FDA's site, and they claimed that although it has never been thoroughly examined, its efficiency is still unknown. So they say there might be a little credence to the snake oil scheme. But essentially the meaning behind snake oil is that it's kind of used as a cure-all, right? So it's a fake medicine. It's something that's kind of ambiguous. So a dubious doctor will walk from town to town and ask people what their ailments are. The people will come up with a random sickness, and the doctor will say, "Oh, I have something that's brand new. Here's some viper oil. Here's some snake oil." And since it's something that nobody's ever heard of, they'd be like, "Oh, yeah, sure, it's a new cure for this one super rare disease that I have," where in reality it's not a cure for anything at all. Alright, let's move on to number 9. So, the confidence scheme number 9 we're going to talk about is, it's called the grandparent scheme, and it's kind of sad. It's where a random person will call an older person and claim to be their grandchild, saying something like, "Oh, I've landed myself in jail. I was falsely accused of XYZ, and now I require money for a bailout." Sometimes they'll request gift cards for the bail, which of course is not how bail works. I don't know, maybe it is, but I don't think it is. And it's obviously considered fraud when it actually goes through, or attempted fraud when it doesn't. And it is said to occur mainly on social media postings. So tell your grandparents to watch out when they're on the Facebook. You never know when. Just tell Grandpappy, "Hey, if I ever end up in jail, don't bail me out." All right. So this one's a good one. Number 8, the money box scheme, which was said to have been created in Germany. So what people would do is they would create a little mechanical box, and when you turned a lever in the box, it would appear to turn regular paper into $100 bills. And the victim of the scheme would see this box and say, "Oh my god, I'm going to make so much money if I buy this." And then the scammer would sell the box for $25,000 all the way up to $102,000. The machine usually had about 6 to 10 $100 bills inside of it in order to demonstrate the money-producing property. So blank paper would go on one side, and $100 bills would come out of the other side, cut and everything, ready to go. And by the time the victims figured out they were scammed, the scammer would be long gone. The money box. Greed is what do you call it? A catalyst. Greed is a catalyst for scheming, folks. Don't be greedy and you won't get schemed. I mean, you probably will anyways, but whatever. Alright, let's go on to number 8, the bogus dry cleaning bill scam. I like this one because it's kind of simple. So what people do is they go around to dry cleaners and they dig receipts out of the trash bins at the dry cleaners, and they mail them to restaurants. And in the letter they say, hey, one of your employees spilled a bunch of coffee all over my suit. I had to get it dry cleaned, so here's a $30 bill for you. And then supposedly the restaurant owner mails back the $30. It doesn't work too often, I imagine, but it's a nice little interesting scheme, which I don't know, maybe I'll try in the future. I'll let you guys know how it goes. Of course, I'll return the money or I'll donate it to I don't know, support giving Bleach to coronavirus-ridden children. Alright, number 7. This could easily be number 1, but I knocked it down all the way to 7 just because it's kind of it's not really a confidence man scam. It's not something that's very repeatable, but it's something that I think a lot of people contemplate, including myself, and that's insurance fraud. This includes burning down your house, intentionally crashing your car, or, shooting your husband. All of the above, they're all getting lumped into this insurance fraud scheme. A lot of money involved, and I'm sure there's a lot of interesting stories. I could probably do a top 10 alone on insurance fraud cases. Maybe I'll do that one day. Let me pen that real quick. So, not too much to say about that one. Pretty basic, pretty common, I imagine. Alright, let's go on to number 6. Number 6, the old violin scam. So this one's pretty common. You might have seen it in popular culture, books, movies. The first time I saw it, I think it was in American Gods or something like that. We're not here to talk about books. So the violin scheme. 2 guys go into a hotel. One of them leaves a crappy violin, like a $20 violin, with the guy at the front desk and says, hey, can you watch this for a minute? And then a second guy walks in and he sees the violin and says, oh wow, that's a really nice violin, can I see it? And he picks it up and says, oh my gosh, it's a Stradivarius, it's worth millions of dollars, that's so cool, I'll give you $50,000 for it now. And the guy says, oh no, I'm just watching it, it's a friend's. And then the second guy goes, oh, I'll give you $1 million for it. And the guy says, oh, I can't, I'm watching it for this other fella, I'd totally sell it to you for $1 million if I owned it though. And then the second guy says, oh darn, that's too heckin' bad, and he walks away. Then the first guy comes back and he says, hey, can I have my violin back? And the guy says, sure. The first guy says, hey, I don't really like this violin, I'll sell it to you for $1,000. And then the guy who watched it says, oh wow, $1,000, I can sell it for $1 million. Meanwhile, it's a $20 violin. So then he kind of gets scammed a bit. Alright, move on. Number 5. Number 5, I'm going to lump a bunch of stuff into number 5. I'm going to call it online scams. So this includes fake antiviruses, phishing scams, fake support call spams. Basically, it's a bunch of people that pretend to help you, and then they steal your identity. Alright, so for like fake antivirus, what they'll do is you'll be surfing on some sketchy website trying to buy, black market fishing poles or something, and a little ad will pop up saying, oh, we have detected a virus, why don't you click on this thing and we'll solve it for you. And then you click on it and you download their antivirus software, and then it turns out that is the virus software. So then it takes over your computer, steals all your information, and next thing you know, you're living out on the street. Your only possession is a terminally ill computer. Phishing. Phishing is when you get an email from something you are a patron for, like say you're a customer at eBay. You'll get an email from someone who appears to be eBay, but it's not really eBay. So it'll say, oh, you have to log into your account, and so you'll log into this fake eBay account, and you will give the fake eBay person your username and login, and the next thing you know, they have your real eBay account username and login. And so then they'll hack into your account and use your account to buy all sorts of stuff on eBay, ship it to their house, and no one's the wiser. That's phishing for you. It's probably the most common one that's still in use. So make sure when you get an email from Chase Bank, it's actually Chase Bank. I've run into that one a couple times. And then fake support call is basically the same thing, where they call and claim that your account has been hacked and they need your information in order to save it. I've gotten these too, but by then I had already been scammed, so I knew better. Learning the hard way as usual, folks. Alright, next is the Beijing tea scam, number 4, Beijing tea. So this one's pretty simple. It doesn't just happen in China, it happens in many tourist spots, but essentially tourists roam the streets. People recognize the tourists, they say, hey, let's go to a tea shop. And they bring them into the tea shop, and they get the bill back, and the bill is like $100 for a cup of tea. And the person who brought them to the tea store will say, oh, that's just tradition, when in fact they work with the tea shop. And so then they'll hand over their $100 bills, and the tourists will follow suit, hand over their $100 bills, and say, oh, it's just super expensive, really nice foreign tea. And then the tea shop makes a lot of money off of that. Alright, number 3 is the classic pigeon drop, which I think it was popularized in the movie The Sting, which is pretty cool if you want to watch it. Basically what happens is you trick somebody into saying, oh, I'll take care of your money, invest it, make you millions of dollars. And they give you a briefcase full of money, and then you walk up to a urinal, use the bathroom, and during that, another person walks up beside you, uses the same urinal, or not the same urinal, the urinal right next to it, and then you trade briefcases that look identical, and you come out of the bathroom with an identical looking briefcase, when in fact that has no money in it, and the other one is full of money, and that guy's colluding with you, and he walks away with all the cash monies. Pretty simple one, pretty fun one. Probably doesn't work too much anymore. People are more wise as to how they should use their money to invest. Alright, number 2. The melon drop. I just like the title of this one, I don't know. But it's a pretty reasonable scam too. I think it's a nice, quick, and easy one. What you do is you walk around with a very fragile item that costs like $20. But it looks kind of pretty, and you walk around, and eventually you let somebody bump into you, and then you drop the item, and you say, oh, you made me drop this super expensive antique, it's worth thousands of dollars, it's a family heirloom, it's priceless to me, how could you ever repay me? Oh, $5,000, that sounds fine. And then they give you $5,000, and that's the scam. It's pretty simple, it's pretty well thought out. You take advantage of people's guilt, which is always a great way to go through life. Alright, then we're going to do some honorary mentions. The first is blackmail. This is a great one if you discover your best friend is cheating on his wife. Then you just say, hey, I can release this information if you don't give me, if you don't buy coffee next week. And then they'll be like, oh no, I'll buy you 2 coffees, and then you get coffee out of it, which is nice. So that's blackmail. White van speakers is a good one. It's when you sell crappy items out of the back of a van, claiming that they're super expensive and that you're going behind your boss's back to screw over his inventory, when in reality you're selling crap for lots of money. So the white van speakers is a great one. Alright, time for number 1, salting the mine. Salting the mine is really, it's really cool actually. I think it's clever. What people would do during the big gold rush of the 1800s is they would take a flat piece of gold, put it in a shotgun cartridge, load the shotgun, shoot the shotgun in a cave, and there would be gold splattered all over the walls. And then they'd go to a bunch of rich investors and say, hey, I found this mine that's just filled to the brim with gold. They'd bring them and they'd show them all the gold splayed on inside of the cave. And then they'd sell these mines to rich investors for just unbelievable amounts of money. Millions of dollars most of the time, which back then is just insane. And that's why that's number one. I just think it's really clever. I think it's really cool. I think there's a couple of good movies that could be made out of it. And also Salting the Mine is a cool title. And that's all I got for you today. Sorry it's time to end, folks. But I'd like to thank you for listening to the GSMC Weird News Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review, which it really helps us. And also, if you could please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, that would be downright swell as well. Thank you, and have a good night.